YouTube? How's it going? Dylan here. And it's time for issue number 2 of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I really, really like this book. Like, really, really. Like, I got issue 1 and 2 copies, and I have issue 0 hung on my wall. Like, so, I really like this book. Although issue 0 just looks so cool, even if it wasn't good, it could still probably be hanging up because of how much I love the Power Rangers and I love the Green Ranger. So, but I think my favorite thing about this whole story is it's really about Tommy and it's about the Green Ranger. That's the best part to me. So, let's get into this book. Opens with Billy and Trini, and Billy's just kind of spouting out nonsense, or not nonsense, but science behind how the Zords work. And this is actually Trini and Billy looking into the Dragon Zord like they said they were going to. And then Billy kind of has this crisis of confidence of crisis, however that goes. And Trini's just kind of there and kind of pushes him up and gets him back to full, kind of backs him up and really kind of gives him the confidence boost that he needs. And it makes me wonder if these two, if they're gonna pair these two, which I don't mind at all, because no one in the show in Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was a couple other than Kimberly and Tommy. That was the only couple, and it was just really confusing. But it'd be really kind of sad if they do decide to pair them, because Trini's eventually leaving. I want to see how the timeline works for this, but in the actual canon, Trini leaves when Jason and Kimberly leave. Kimberly leaves with them. Yeah, the three of them leave together, and that's when we get Rocky, Aisha, and Kat. I think. No, Kim stays around. It's been a while since I've watched Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. I guess I'll have to go back and rewatch to get all this correct. So, they, do their thing, and it's funny because they're in the Dragon Zord in the middle of the ocean, or the middle of the bay, or wherever the Dragon Zord comes from whenever Tommy calls it. And then we cut back to Scorpina threatening Tommy in his house, in his room. And we actually get to see something that, if I recall correctly, you never see in the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. You see Tommy's mom. You don't see her face, but you see her. You actually see a Ranger's parents. Because I don't think you ever actually see the parents of the Rangers, at all. I don't know. I'm pretty sure about that, though. So, Scorpina's just threatening him, and he's it's not cool. And then his mom walks by, and she's like, oh, instead of threatening you, I'll threaten her. And Tommy's like, oh, fuck that shit. And he teleports them out of there. Scorpina breaks his communicator, which I want an actual communicator. It would be so cool. I just have this dumb watch. And then he morphs. It looks golden. In this picture, the morpher looked gold. I always thought it was silver, but I guess it's gold. I don't know. I always thought it was gold or silver. He morphs and they start fighting, and she's like, oh, well, that's cool. You want to fight me, but I'm not going to just fight you one-on-one. And then she summons a bunch of putties. Cut to Jason teaching karate at an actual dojo instead of the community center like it was in the show. And Kimberly's there just kind of chilling out, and she tells him that, hey, Tommy kind of bailed on me, and I was, just getting out of the house, because apparently her parents are going through a divorce, which makes her character that much more interesting, so much more. It's actually some depth to the character. And it kind of really brings it into that modern feel, because I don't think divorces were really that big of a thing that anyone talked about back then when the show was coming out in like the early 90s. So that was cool. And then like Jason Sensei comes up and's like, "Hey, you know, I've seen Tommy fight and he uses a different style. It'd be really cool if he came in and, you know, kind of showed off his style to the class." And Jason's kind of like, "Oh, you want Tommy to help me teach?" And he just felt really weird about it. And it cuts back to Tommy doing a pretty decent job at fighting off the putties and Scorpina. And it's still, this plan is still centered around that crystal that Rita used or recovered in issue 0. And then, so they end up using the putties as putty, surprisingly enough. Like, that's never a thing that I've ever actually seen. And they like strap Tommy to a tree. Like they just, like, fuse some putties to a tree and Tommy. And Scorpion's about to get the dragon dagger when the rest of the team shows up. Well, Kimberly and Jason show up. And then Zach shows up a little bit late. And then there's, you know, they fight off a bunch of putties. They free Tommy. And then Tommy takes off after Scorpina. But Scorpina's gone. And he has this conversation with the ghost Rita that I think is real, but I'm not positive. Like, I'm not sure if the Rita is a manifestation of his internal struggle or she's actually there poking him. I don't remember if it's actually gone over that, because monthly issues and I'm reading a bunch of other stuff. But I think it'd be a lot more interesting if she wasn't actually there and it was just his internal thing just poking him. The only reason it makes me think that she's not actually there and it's more internal is because, like, she's really just kind of messing with him in, like, the same way that you would mess with yourself. Like, your head would mess with you if you were kind of in this situation. But, so they show up and, you know, Tommy gets a little defensive about, like, them having to help him. Because, again, you know, that Rita is just kind of pushing him. And then we go to the command center, and it's like, and Zach is like, "Man, it's really messed up that Rita would go this far to try to get back at Tommy." And then Billy explains, you know, what he thinks happened with the Dragon Zord, and he thinks that it just stopped listening to Tommy. It, like, nothing actually happened, nothing went wrong, but it just stopped listening because it's trying to reject him. And then Tommy gets, you know, a little defensive, and then he collapses. Because, as we know, like, the green power coin isn't good for him. It's not really the best thing for him to be using, and it's just, like, it's really bad. And that's the end of that issue. Tommy collapses. And we're back to the adventures of Bulk and Skull. Reading the Bulk and Skull stuff just puts a smile on my face. So they captured the putty from the last issue, have him tied up, get the genius idea of making their own power suits, and they're like, "Alright, we're going to take this putty somewhere else, and then we're going to beat it." So they're driving it strapped to the hood of the car, or the roof of this car, and they're like, "Alright, this is the perfect spot." Bulk's like, "Alright, we're going to get changed, and then we're going to take this thing out." And Skull's like, "Well, did you tell him?" And the putty's off and free. And then that's the end of that. So, the Boom Studios Mighty Morphin Power Rangers book is awesome. And I love the art. I love every cover. It's so much fun. It's so cool. And it makes me feel like I'm watching the Power Rangers again. And that is amazing. I love it. So, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers #2. If you want to pick it up, Comixology, go to your local comic book store. I suggest going to your local comic book store because, you know, support the brick and mortar. So yeah, let me know if you picked this up and what you think about it. But I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.